everybody, hope you're all right. So just thought I'd do a short video just to run through the sort of 5 key elements that come into sort of setting up your basic Pilates position, and they are sort of things you should keep in mind as you're going through the different exercises that we do. I tend to cue you anyway to maintain your position and keep the right things activated, but it's good to have a sort of basic understanding of what we're aiming for to start with. So, first of all, bring yourself so that you are lying on your back. You may wish to have a little head cushion or two. If you haven't got snazzy Pilates ones, that's fine, just a normal little cushion will be alright. So, bring yourself onto your back, and then just bring your feet together, and then you're going to step your toes apart, bring your heels in line with your toes, and that just sets your feet up so they're hip width apart, and you want your knees to stay in line with your toes and your hips. So first things first, we're going to think about your breathing. So you might want to just pop your hands onto the sides of your rib cage, because what we're looking for is what's called lateral breathing. So you're going to breathe in through your nose, and you're going to breathe out through pursed lips. Your in-breath is more active, but your out-breath should be very passive and relaxed. So you're going to breathe in and think about the air flowing into the sides of your rib cage where your hands are. And then just breathing out, letting all that air empty out, and let your body sink heavy into the mat. So breathing in, breathing wide into the sides of the rib cage, breathing out, emptying out all the air. And just keep going with that until you can relax and that breath becomes very easy. Breathing in, breathing wide into the sides of the rib cage. You should feel your rib cage expand underneath your hands. And then as you breathe out, the rib cage gently comes back again. So you should feel your hands just gently moving away from each other as you breathe in, as that rib cage expands to the sides, and then your hands come back towards each other as you breathe out. And if you're sat at your desk or whatever you're doing, it's often worth just taking a break, spending just a moment to think about your breath. Really breathing optimally so you can get plenty of oxygen in and around your body. Okay, so that's your breathing. We're going to think next, we're going to break centering down into 2 parts. So we're going to think about your neutral alignment for your pelvis and lower back, and then we'll think about how you activate through your deeper core. So to find your neutral position, you're going to make a diamond with your hands. You're going to put your thumbs in your belly button and your fingers down towards your legs. And you're going to have an imaginary marble in the middle of that diamond. And you're just going to think about rolling the marble towards your thumbs. So effectively your pelvis rolls towards you. And then you're going to roll your pelvis and your marble away from you. So I'm exaggerating slightly. It doesn't have to be a huge movement, but just spend a few moments rolling your marble towards your fingers and then back towards your thumbs. And you might find that it's easier to get that marble to roll in one direction compared to the other. You might find it's difficult to get that marble to roll anywhere at all. So just think about your breathing, nice deep, long, easy breaths into the sides and the back of the rib cage, and just see if you can allow that movement to happen. So to find what we call your neutral spine, so the position where your lower back has a natural curve and your pelvis is in neutral, you want to bring your marble to rest just in the centre of that diamond. So you can also have a quick peep, just check that your thumbs and fingers are completely level. And in that position, you should just have a little teeny pocket of air under the middle of your lower back. Now, you may find that in order to achieve that neutral position through your lower back, you actually have a big pocket of air under the middle of your back. Now, this is not what we want, but we're in a compromised position a lot of the time. I am still working on my ability to keep my upper back nice and heavy and my middle back heavy into the mat and keep my pelvis in neutral. So we don't want to force it, we don't want to hold it, but I want you to be aware of what we're aiming for and to just quietly work towards that. You might find it straightforward straight away, but if you don't panic. Just run through what we do and hopefully you'll have a better understanding of what we're aiming for at the end. So, don't worry too much about this area at the moment, just make sure your diamond is level and your marble is right in the middle of that diamond. So that has set your lower back and pelvis into neutral. So we want to think now about how we keep that there. Now it shouldn't be a lot of effort. We want to be able to activate the right muscles at a level that's appropriate for whatever task we're going to do. So we will just set up as if we would for like low level exercises. So there's different things you can think about to get your deep core muscles to activate. And when I talk about deep core in very simple terms, I'm talking about your deepest layer of tummy muscles, which is called your transversus abdominis, your pelvic floor muscles, and a big muscle in your back called multifidus. Now, don't worry too much about that. If we focus on those tummy muscles, that's fine because they are a little team, those three. If one set of those muscles is working, the whole team will be working. So don't need to worry too much about the details. So of those team of three, you can only really feel those deeper tummy muscles, your transversus abdominis. So if you bring your fingers onto your bony hip points at the front of the pelvis, and then come in about an inch and down about an inch, under there is where we want to feel a little bit of tensioning in these deeper tummy muscles. So it is quite subtle. We're only looking for about 30% effort. Your body position's not going to change. Your bottom's going to stay nice and relaxed. We're just looking for a sort of slight tensioning and tightening up of those really deep core muscles. So there are some different ideas that we will try to see if we can get the right activity under there. So the first one is we're going to have a breath in, and as we breathe out, we're just going to think about those little bony hip points at the front of the pelvis, and we're going to try and draw them in towards each other. So it sounds a bit strange, but just give it a go. Have a breath in and relax, and as you breathe out, draw those little bony hip points in towards each other. Breathe in and relax again. And you should just feel a little bit of tensioning underneath your fingers. It might take a while, you might get it straight away. Just take some time if it isn't straight away. Stay relaxed, just a nice easy breath in, and as you breathe out, drawing those little bony hip points towards each other. So another idea you could try is to imagine you've got a big cold pebble, really big pebble, and that is sat on your lower tummy in between those bony hip points. And as you breathe out, you're just thinking about drawing your lower tummy ever so gently away from that cold, cold feeling of the cold pebble. So have a breath in and relax, and as you breathe out, drawing the lower tummy gently away from that cold pebble. So we're not sucking the tummy in, it's not a big deal, it's just that feeling of something really cold touching your skin and just shrinking away from it. So hopefully one of those might have worked. If not, and you're more familiar with pelvic floor exercises, you can focus more on getting activation through your pelvic floor. So if you imagine your pelvic floor like a net that's kind of sort of hanging down at the bottom of your pelvis, we're going to think about just gently drawing that net up. So again, it is very subtle. Your bottom muscles stay really relaxed. If you're clenching your bottom, that's not what we want. So have a breath in. As you breathe out, just think about a little lift through the neck that is your pelvic floor. And then gently release. So breathing out, find that lift through the pelvic floor. Breathing in and relax. So sometimes it might help to think more of like a zipping motion. If you think about a zipper from your back passage to the front, you're going to zip up through that pelvic floor. So breathing out, zipping up through the pelvic floor. Maybe thinking about a little draw of those bony hip points towards each other as well. So it is subtle, I can't emphasise that enough. If you're having to work really hard, you just need to take a few deep breaths, relax, and then just try gently again. You're looking for 30% of your effort and just a tensioning of those deeper tummy muscles. So we've set our neutral position through lower back and pelvis. We've worked out how to hopefully activate those deeper tummy muscles to maintain that neutral position. We're going to think more now about this rib cage placement, what goes on a little bit higher up. So you really want to feel like your rib cage, if you're in a sitting position, is stacked directly above your pelvis. So they are always in line. So when you're lying down, the easiest thing to do is just to think about maintaining that neutral position. So you can always keep your hands up there, keep your diamond, make sure that marble stays in the centre. And then just think about sinking and softening your rib cage down into the mat. So you might breathe in, and as you breathe out, really relax, sink the rib cage heavy down into the mat. You can maybe feel where your bottom rib is and just check that you can't put your hand underneath there. That you are nice and heavy into the mat, right down to the base of the rib cage. So some people will find that easy. Others may find that they are very much flared up towards the ceiling. And you might need to think more about sliding those ribs down towards your hips so you really connect through the front of the body in order to keep those ribs in a nice position. Again, we don't want to be holding, we don't want to be fixing. Certainly don't want to be holding our breath. So just be aware of what you're aiming for, have a little play with that, maybe let those ribs flare up, and then think about sinking them down, sliding them towards the hips. Think about that idea of breathing out and just being really heavy through the rib cage into the mat. You can imagine, if you like, that your rib cage is like a sandbag, just sinking down. So once you've got that idea, we'll just do a couple of arm movements to maybe challenge that. So if you just lift those hands up and let your hands travel towards the wall behind you, just notice what happens through your rib cage. So ideally we'd like the rib cage to stay the same, but what you might find is after you go past a certain point, the rib cage starts to follow. And I'm exaggerating, but just to show you what may happen. So what you would like is, as you breathe out, you float those hands up, you sink your rib cage heavy into the mat, and you keep that rib cage sinking as you reach backwards. And that might limit how far you can reach your hands, and that's fine. We're more concerned about maintaining the control and the stability, and then as that improves, you'll be able to take those arms a bit further. Okay, so that's rib cage. So we're now going to think more about shoulder blades. So a lot of us work at desks. Well, luckily I don't so much anymore, but have done a lot in the past. We all drive, all sorts of stuff puts us into this forward position. So we really want to think about where our shoulder blades sit on the back of our rib cage. So just take a moment and think about those shoulder blades and see if you can gently slide them a little bit down towards your back pockets. And then we're going to think about how they move. So we're going to take the hands up towards the ceiling. We're going to breathe in and reach those hands up a little bit further. And you should feel your shoulder blades sliding round and forwards around the back of the rib cage. Now, I want you to see if you can sink those shoulders down so the shoulder blades slide back around the rib cage and towards each other. And just keep working with that, breathing in to float up, breathing out to sink the shoulders down so those shoulder blades slide and glide forwards and backwards around the rib cage. Now, if you're finding it a little bit tricky, often it's trickier to get that sink down. Think about widening across your collarbones, widening across the back of your shoulders. But you would still like your arms to stay shoulder width apart and those palms facing each other. So just be aware that it would be easy for your shoulders to creep up towards your ears as you do this. Just keep that idea of gently drawing shoulder blades down towards your back pockets all of the time. So to find a sort of neutral position for your shoulders, you're not reaching all the way up, you're not sinking them all the way down, but you're just coming to a position where you can feel that width across the collarbones, width across the back of your shoulders. So you just feel like those shoulder blades are gently connecting towards each other at the back of the rib cage. And again, you could try a couple of those arm circles and just see whether you can maintain that nice placement of your shoulder blades as you move through your arms. So, and again, the rib cage might want to move as well, so just take a few moments to focus on your rib cage, your shoulder blades, just being able to maintain that position in a relaxed manner as you move those arms freely and easily. So breathe out as those hands travel backwards and breathe in as those arms come around. So one more. And then let those arms come down. So last but not least, and usually when I set people up in class, I actually focus on our necks first, but we've kind of worked from the bottom to the top in some kind of logical order, hopefully. So you want to feel like you've got some length through the back of your neck. Again, you might be happy flat on the floor. I'm not too bad, but I'm just a little bit more comfortable with a small cushion. You might find you need maybe another little cushion or something a little bit thicker. But what you want is the natural curve in your neck. And in the same way you'd like your rib cage to always be aligned above your pelvis if you're in sitting, or directly in line if you're lying, you want your head to be aligned as well. So I'll just sit up for a moment. So pelvis is nice and neutral in sitting, rib cage is stacked above the pelvis, and my head is stacked above my rib cage. Now, this is quite a familiar position. Some people work really hard but actually then come too far with that rib cage forwards. So it's not about forcing in one direction or another. Imagine you've got these boxes, a box that's your pelvis, a box that's your rib cage, and a box that is your head. And your boxes need to just stack easily above one another so they're nice and balanced. Anyway, coming back to the mat, and most of the work we do is on the mat, and from this, what we call our Pilates rest position, you want to find that length through the back of the neck. And we'll just do a few very gentle chin nods to help find that feeling of length. So imagine you have a squidgy ball between your chin and your chest, and you are just going to ever so gently squeeze into that squidgy ball and then release again. So it's quite squidgy. You're only looking to squash it just a centimetre or so and then release again. And as you do that, and you might want to pop your hand on your neck, you should just feel the very deeper neck muscles gently switching on, and you get that feeling of lengthening through the back of the neck, and then release and switch off. If you can feel under your hand all the superficial muscles coming on, and your neck is really quite tense, that is far too much hard work. Again, it's very subtle, very, very subtle. Imagine you've got your soft squidgy ball between your chin and your chest, and you're just having a tiny squeeze into that and release. Relax there and just see if you can keep that feeling of length through the back of the neck, and you're just keeping your squidgy ball, which is about the size of a peach, or you can imagine a nice soft peach, just keeping that between your chin and your chest without squashing it, without letting it roll away, and that's where you want to be through most of the exercises. Okay, so I hope that was helpful. I can't emphasize enough that it is subtle. Don't stress about it if you can't find the right things. Just take some time, take some deep breaths, give yourself a chance to settle into it. And as I said, please feel free to get in touch anytime if any of that isn't clear. I am getting brave. As time goes on, we will be able to hopefully do some FaceTime or WhatsApp face calls, or maybe even some Zoom stuff. So please let me know if you'd like any more